actually COVID doesn't stay 80 days. As of now, actually, very few cases of capability we have seen, but we are keeping watch on them so that actually this situation does not be in this situation. So current strategy of the government is that the reopening of the economic activities gradually, and of course strategic geographical zoning system, red, yellow and green, as I have explained to you, treating the COVID and the non-COVID patients in the same hospital. Earlier, the private hospitals, they were not taking any COVID patients, and virtually patients were denied from different hospitals. And in some government hospitals, these were dedicated as non-COVID, so they were also not receiving the COVID patients. But now we have actually more and more patients actually we are detecting. And at the same time, because there are strategic and the gradual reopening of the economic activities, we are also seeing more cases. But actually we are trying to avert the number of deaths so that we can mitigate the situation and we can actually save the lives of the people. So we'll listen from your experiences and advice. I thank you very much for listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Director General Azad, for that presentation on the experience from Bangladesh. Now we will turn to the Eastern Mediterranean region, and we have the honour this afternoon of having the Minister of Health, Dr. Ahmed Al-Saidi, from the Minister of Health from Oman. Dr. Al-Saidi, you have the floor. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, as our DG used to say every afternoon in this press conference, and I'm delighted to join you today from Oman, but I'm trying to share the slides with you. I don't know whether that's done or not yet. No. Give me 1 second, please. Can you see the slides?
Yes, you just make it full screen, Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is the Sultanate of Oman. Our population is about 4.6 million, and the life expectancy is 77 years old. And from the onset, I would like to say that we provide completely free healthcare services for all people in Oman related to the COVID-19 disease, regardless of their nationality or even immigration status. We had our first case in Oman on the 24th of February this year, but of course we started preparedness from early January. And as you can see from the statistics, 20% women and 80% men. The reason for that, as you could see also in the same slides, that about 80% of cases up till now are in our the expatriates, who are mainly male and luckily young population as well. The admission rate in Oman is about 6% of the confirmed cases only, and the death rate is 0.4% of the confirmed cases. Of the confirmed cases. Our ICU admission rate is 1%. That later. As many other countries, the first
there's also an independent review of PPA distribution. Phase participants, the number started, but and there is a very and at the same time, this media, and actually he talks to the local administration, public representatives, general people, and these she has done very frequently. So actually government is actually continuing the economic activities so that the livelihood of the people are not in constraint, and at the same time number of cases remain limited. So we are actually trying to make a balance between the life and the livelihoods. And our Honorable Health Minister, he is in the focal point and he is looking into all the health initiatives in Bangladesh. So I have also detailed to that 55 RT-PCR labs we have actually now by this time created, and by this time we have actually tested 4,058,332 samples till date, and we have seen we are actually trying to collect actually samples from the symptomatic cases, and by this time we have seen that 17% of the cases they show actually positive from RT-PCR. We still actually did not start antibody test in Bangladesh. So actually, this is not really, we have seen that red zone and yellow zone in Bangladesh. So at the early 9th, at the 6th May, from the 9th week of the detection of the first cases. So this was the trend that actually sporadic distributions were there in different parts of Bangladesh. But on the 11th week, 20th May, most of the areas in Bangladesh there was a spread of the cases. But now we see that actually these are being concentrated in the different areas, and most of the areas, these are actually the number of cases are lowering. And I think, and actually applying this situation, we are applying the red zone, the yellow zone, and the green zone in Bangladesh. So with the development partners in Bangladesh, and of course WHO's position is in the central, the WHO is providing leadership among the development partners and other UN organizations in Bangladesh, and we are actually doing the surveillance, contact tracing, and the laboratory testing, and point of entry, quarantine, case management, infection control, and infection prevention control, disease communication awareness, community engagement, logistics procurement, and preserving stability and addressing the social tensions. So jointly we are actually making this plan with the development partners and other NGOs, and of course WHO's remaining in the central position. The key challenges in Bangladesh as we perceive, this is of course population density. In a huge, actually small area, large numbers of actually population live, and also there are slums in certain areas and actually people of low economic condition. We have got low level of awareness on the standard infection prevention and control among the people, unavailability of the quarantine facilities at the point of entries. We have of course, like in other countries, there is stigma, myth, and the fear. Of course, still to add also we have increased ICU beds and ventilators. Still we see that actually we need more ICU beds and the ventilators. And you know, in Bangladesh, over 1 million forcibly displaced people from the Myanmar. They are remaining in the southern belt of Bangladesh in Cox's Bazar. With the help of development partners, we are also actually trying to mitigate the COVID-19 in those areas. But of course, these people are living in a very highly concentrated situation. We need to continue the work actually very cautiously that actually COVID doesn't spread in this. As of now, actually, very few cases of COVID we have seen, but we are keeping watch on them so that actually this situation does not be in this situation. So current strategy of the government is that the reopening of the economic activities gradually, and of course strategic geographical zoning system, red, yellow, and green, as I have explained to you, treating the COVID and the non-COVID patients in the same hospital. Earlier, the private hospitals, they were not taking any COVID patients, and virtually patients were denied from different hospitals. And in some government hospitals, these were dedicated as non-COVID, so they were also not receiving the COVID patients. But now we have actually increased, so more and more patients actually we are detecting. And at the same time, because there are strategic and the gradual reopening of the economic activities, we are also seeing more cases. But actually we are trying to avert the number of deaths so that we can mitigate the situation and we can actually save the lives of the people. So we'll listen from your experiences and advice. I thank you very much for listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Director General Azad, for that presentation on the experience from Bangladesh. Now we will turn to the Eastern Mediterranean region, and we have the honour this afternoon of having the Minister of Health, Dr. Ahmed Al Saidi, from the Minister of Health from Oman. Dr. Al Saidi, you have the floor. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, as our DG used to say every afternoon in this press conference, and I'm delighted to join you today from Oman, but I'm trying to share the slides with you. I don't know whether that's done or not yet. No. Give me 1 second, please. Can you see the slides?
Yes, if you just make it full screen, Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is the Sultanate of Oman. Our population is about 4.6 million, and the life expectancy is 77 years old. And from the onset, I would like to say that we provide completely free healthcare services for all people in Oman related to the COVID-19 disease, regardless of their nationality or even immigration status. We had our first case in Oman on the 24th of February this year, but of course we started preparedness from early January. And as you can see from the statistics, 20% women and 80% men. The reason for that, as you could see also in the same slides, that about 80% of cases up till now are in our the expatriates, who are mainly male and luckily young population as well. The admission rate in Oman is about 6% of the confirmed cases only, and the death rate is 0.4% of the confirmed cases. Our ICU admission rate is 1% of the confirmed cases as well, and unfortunately the numbers are increased, and we'll come back to that later. As many other countries, the first cases in Oman were through travel, and then unfortunately we started having the community spread, and it continued in different parts of the country. We started also the public control measures early in March. We closed schools, shops, ports of entries, worship places. We forbidden public gatherings. We closed all stores, restaurants. We reduced the number of staff in workplaces to maximum of 30%.
दशमेश जी तेरा कोई सानी
Sorry, I'm going to skip some of the slides because most of it is repeated as my colleagues already mentioned. We have and they are taking some load of the Ministry of Health and other government hospitals. We also participated in research. We have a research council which funded many research projects related to COVID-19. And some of these research projects and the encouragement from the government, we had difficulties like many other countries at the onset of the pandemic in obtaining PPE, ventilators, other medical equipment. We managed to get enough, but also luckily with the crisis, the talented young Omanis and expatriates in the country, they managed to within no time produce lots of the PPE we required. So we've learned a lot from this pandemic, working together with the GCC neighbors countries, with EMRO and WHO, been very helpful. And I would like here actually to congratulate our colleagues and friends in New Zealand. They've done an excellent job. They are an island, we are not, but hopefully we'll learn from them a lot. I don't have much to add to what's been said, and we hope that now with the further restriction, today actually we looked down one major province of Oman, which is very popular with the tourists, both from within the country, neighboring countries and abroad. It's a monsoon season, it's the southern part of Oman, and we locked it down with few other touristic places. Going back to work, we started gradually, we're monitoring the effect of that. People like in Oman, like everywhere, I think they are becoming tired of isolation. It's been they've been very patient with us, and I'm grateful to all of them. Our healthcare staff are working around the clock, and they've done an excellent job. I think the key success in Oman, which we are still not out of the woods, is the early preparedness and the teamwork and learning from other countries and following WHO directives. Thank you very much, and I'll be more than happy to answer any question related to the situation in Oman.
Thank you very much, Excellency Minister of Health Al Staidi from Oman. We now come to the continent, and it's my pleasure to introduce from Norway the State Secretary, Ministry of Health and Care Services, Mrs. Erlandsen. Mrs. Erlandsen, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor and for the opportunity to inform you about Norway COVID-19 response. Dear Director General and colleagues, let me start by giving you a brief snapshot of the current situation. We have 5.3 million inhabitants in Norway. The reproduction rate has been stable at around 0.6 over the past week before we implemented the restrictive measures. We have had a total of about 8,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases. This includes 239 deaths. There were 21 hospitalized patients on the 9th of June, out of which only 2 received invasive respiratory treatment. We reached a peak on the 1st of April with 325 people hospitalized and 99 receiving invasive respiratory treatment. This stark decrease since the 1st of April demonstrates the effect of implemented measures. On the 12th of March, Norway introduced the strongest and most restrictive measures ever during peacetime. This happened just 2 weeks after the first confirmed COVID-19 case. On the 20th of April, 5 weeks later, we initiated a gradual reopening of the society, started with kindergartens, and the following week schools for first up to fourth grade were opened. Since then, the government has increasingly lifted restrictions. Each new easing of restriction happens in accordance with what the situation allows for. In Norway, we have succeeded in flattening the curve. Our strategy has therefore shifted from suppressing to controlling the virus. We aim at keeping the disease burden low and ensuring sufficient capacity in the health system. If we experience a new sharp increase in the infection rate, we are prepared to return to a strategy of suppression. We plan to maintain measures that are simple yet effective with limited negative consequences for the funding of the society, such as basic hygiene and social distancing measures. In the reopening of the society, we have been guided by the recommendations of the WHO and European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control. This means that the lifting of measures have been evidence-based, implemented through a unified approach, and imposed in a controlled and cautious manner over time, while safeguarding persons in risk groups. Priority has been given to lifting measures that affect children, followed by workplaces, before other sectors in society. So far, 1.5 months after starting reopening, we have not registered a statistically significant increase in the reproduction number, which of course is a very welcome development. We have been monitoring with particular focus on the school opening, which has not led to more infected children. The way the government has responded to the crisis has to a great extent been aided by the high degree of public trust in our society. In general, Norwegians trust the government. So far, people have consistently adhered to the measures and advice given by the authorities. There has not been at any point any need for stricter measures such as curfews. I also believe in the importance of the Norwegian government's openness about the situation. Clear and understandable communication is a priority in our response. We have focused on informing the public in a manner that is accurate and honest. This includes communication about uncertainty and difficult trade-offs, and we have consistently tried to provide as much predictability as possible regarding the new assessment of the situation can be expected. We have focused on giving hope, building confidence, and creating a sense of togetherness. At the early stage of the crisis, in our daily press conferences, we have appealed to the public to act together to serve the common good. We have actively used the concept of dugnad, which is a strong cultural root in Norway. The term dugnad originally refers to a type of joint community effort where people voluntarily get together to fix, clean, and tidy things up. In this situation, the concept has had much more profound meaning. We use this term to inspire a feeling of common responsibility. Moving forward, we will continue a gradual and cautious lifting of restrictions. While opening up the society, we need to ensure that the level of infection is under control. Increased capacity for testing, tracing, isolation, and quarantining is part of our strategy. We recommended everyone with symptoms to be tested. Tests are locally available free of charge, provided through our health system based on universal health coverage. We need to control the level of transmission in the society to ensure sufficient capacity in the health system. Health services need to continue to be provided also to people with other health issues. To meet the possible future in transmission, we plan for increased healthcare capacity in intensive care units with regard to available health personnel and, of course, pharmaceuticals and medical equipment. Lastly, our national response relies to a great extent on international collaboration. Guidance and advice from the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control and the WHO form the basis for our decision-making. Political dialogue and cooperation with Nordic, European, and at the global level is key in our response. We very much value attending the EU ministerial meetings on COVID-19. We have followed several tracks in the process of procurement of medical equipment and medicines, both within and outside the mechanisms of the EU. And we support a strong and credible WHO assisting countries in their crisis management and coordinating the international response. The development of a vaccine and commitment to making it globally vaccine accessible and fairly distributed is high on the Norwegian agenda. Through the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, CEPI, we have actively contributed to development of a vaccine. And as co-lead for the COVID-19 Global Response Summit, we are dedicated to work with others to realize the goal. Further, Norway joined in the WHO Solidarity Trial from the outset in order to contribute to a global knowledge base. This outbreak is far from over, but I think we have already learned one very important lesson. Solidarity is perhaps our most important asset when responding to a crisis in this scale and severity. When we protect each other, we also protect ourselves. As we keep saying, take care and take care of each other. Norway is a consistent partner for our common future and will continue to work together with others to ensure that we come out of this crisis as a stronger global community. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Secretary Erlandsen, for that presentation on the response from Norway. And I think particularly interesting was the comments around the national response being both guided by, informed by, but working into the international cooperation. And I think that's a lovely example that you presented. We'll now move to the African continent. And it's my pleasure to introduce the Minister of Health from Botswana, Honourable Minister Kwape. Minister Kwape, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me, from the outset, recognize the Director General, Dr. Tedros, and also thank the WHO for their support and pledge firm solidarity. We as Botswana stand with the WHO. Coming to my presentation, I just first want to start off with the chronology of events on Botswana's response to COVID-19. This started in January, and maybe before I say that, I must indicate that Botswana is a country of 2.2 million people with a fairly young population and also a landlocked country. And the health service is almost free. People pay only $50 to access all health services. In terms of the COVID-19 response, we started off in January, where we started screening at port of entries, and we also activated national public health emergency preparedness response teams. In February, we planned and formulated how we were going to approach COVID, and then in March, we had our first case. And Botswana declared a public health emergency in March. And we also imposed 14-day mandatory quarantine for all returning citizens and residents. And His Excellency the President appointed a task force, which he chaired. In April, state of public health emergency was declared and was accompanied by statutory instruments for 6 months. And we also introduced extreme social distancing, and all schools, places of worship, and non-essential businesses were closed. And as we are in May, June, we are slowly relaxing the lockdown And we've now introduced zones and mandatory use of masks. As I indicated, the structure of the COVID response is chaired by His Excellency the President and is facilitated by the Ministry of Health. There is a National Emergency Operations Center, which has a coordinator, and other line ministries are actively involved in the COVID response in the country. And this goes all the way down to district level and village levels in the country. But in terms of the plan, our plan includes coordination, which talks to building capacity, identifying priorities, and strengthening coordination and management at all public health facilities. We also have surveillance rapid response teams and case investigation. We have over 3,000 contact tracers, and we believe that early detection of people exposed to the virus is of critical importance. The other part is the laboratory support, which was fully supported by WHO, and this has allowed us to ensure preparedness on the laboratory management of COVID-19. And as far as case management, we've capacitated all health workers around the country and stakeholders. We have secured isolation facilities for suspected and confirmed cases throughout the country. And the other issue that we're dealing with in terms of preparedness is infection and prevention control. We're using a harmonized assessment tool, and we're also strengthening community and the health facilities. Our port health are also monitored, and we've been screening travelers at all port of entries to enable early detection and also dissemination of information at the respective port of entries. We continue to communicate very vigorously through media, radio, social media, television, and we've engaged religious organizations as well as traditional leaders to ensure that messaging is uniform throughout the country. In terms of logistics, we have attempted to the best of our ability with the help of WHO to procure all commodities for coronavirus prevention and control, and to avail all these commodities to patients. Now, coming to the statistics, to date we have screened well over 340,000 people at port of entries, and we have tested almost 32,000 people, and of these 48 have tested positive, and we've had one death. 22 of the 48 were imported cases, and they have since been transferred back to their respective countries. At the moment, we have 24 recoveries and only one active case. Well, given all that, I think we could say that some of our achievements were the political will at the highest level of the country, and this was led by His Excellency the President, early detection of cases through testing and contact tracing, and then increased capacity in terms of testing, and now we're testing at 7 sites throughout the country, and the private sector is also coming on board. And we are currently testing at about 4,000 a day, and our testing base is about 14,500 per million. And we've also improved coordination and intervention with other stakeholders. And I must also say that one of the major achievements is the support that we got from international organizations, NGOs, and the private sector. That said, we do have some challenges. As I indicated earlier, Botswana, like Oman, is a landlocked country, so we do depend on other countries for access to sea. So, and our commodities come through the port of entries, and that is a greater risk for us for imported cases. And 25 of the 48 cases were all from people coming in through our borders. The other challenges that we have in Botswana is the limited access to supplies, especially personal protective equipment and reagents in our testing. We also have shortages in blood. In the past, we have never really reached the optimal in terms of getting the blood supplies, but we've been hit hard during COVID. We also have sporadic cases of addiction because during the lockdown, we stopped sale of alcohol and tobacco. And this restriction presented us with a situation where we have people with addiction problems and withdrawals. We also have a small spike in terms of gender-based violence. Ever since the easing of business, we've also experienced incidents of people crowding, and but all the same, we've tried to put measures in place so that social distancing is maintained and wearing of masks is mandatory in Botswana. And of course, one of the major challenges is the disruption of provision of essential health services. Way forward, we in Botswana want to continue strengthening our healthcare system by continuing to prepare our isolation sites as well as equipping our facilities and human resource. We also want to expand on the testing at all regions in the country and also at all port of entries. We anticipate that at full capacity we should be able to do 10,000 tests per day. As I indicated earlier also, the private sector is now coming on board, setting up laboratories, and we are also actively with surveillance for active case findings. Finally, I think we, as it was alluded to, we need to really strengthen our research and development and explore potential for traditional medicines in terms of COVID management, and also further explore manufacturing of PPEs and other essential commodities. In closing, I want to reaffirm Botswana's standing in firm solidarity with WHO, because we are stronger together, and we believe in Botswana that we shall overcome. With those few remarks, I want to thank you and yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Minister Kwape, for that presentation on the response from Botswana and some of the particular successes and some of the challenges that remain there for you. Now we move to the final presentation for today's session from the membership, and we move to the Americas region, and it is my honor to present Cuba and invite the Minister of Public Health of the Republic of Cuba, Dr. Miranda. Dr. Miranda, you have the floor.
Doctor Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Director General de la Organización Mundial de la Salud, estimados colegas, Cuba, un pequeño país insular en desarrollo, comparte hoy con la comunidad internacional la respuesta como parte del ciclo de acciones que coordina la Organización Mundial de la Salud. El 11 de marzo de 2020, la Organización Mundial de la Salud declaró a la COVID-19 una pandemia. Cuba reportó su primer caso ese propio día. Como parte del plan aprobado, el sistema de salud creó las capacidades necesarias para asegurar la atención a todo lo largo y ancho del país. En ello jugó un papel fundamental la sólida de la atención primaria de salud y los recursos humanos que hemos preparado en todos estos años. No obstante, tuvimos que enfrentar limitaciones de recursos
como consecuencia del recrudecimiento del bloqueo económico y social impuesto por más de 60 años a nuestro pueblo. El Ministerio de Salud Pública conformó un grupo técnico para el análisis e implementación de las medidas sanitarias, con evaluación diaria y la propuesta sistemática de nuevas acciones al grupo temporal nacional. Se ha diseñado un modelo de gestión integral con 3 componentes que incluye la gestión epidemiológica, la organización de los servicios de salud y la ciencia, incluido el manejo clínico y preventivo. El modelo se sustenta en el sistema de información de estadística y en la vigilancia en salud. El mismo se caracteriza por ser un sistema integrado e integral de vigilancia en todos los estadios epidemiológicos, la intersectorialidad en las acciones, la interdisciplinariedad en las intervenciones, la inmediatez en la toma de decisiones, así como una atención individualizada sin exclusión. Su concepción integra a la industria biotecnológica y farmacéutica cubana. El componente de la gestión epidemiológica incluye un algoritmo caracterizado por la búsqueda activa de casos mediante pesquisa a toda la población, autopesquisas virtuales, vigilancia especializada a sospechosos, aislamientos de contactos y pruebas diagnósticas, esto entre otras acciones. Al cierre del 9 de junio, se habían realizado ya 124.947 pruebas diagnósticas con 1,8% de positividad. Hoy, el número reproductivo efectivo en Cuba es de 0.46. El componente de gestión de la organización de los servicios ha permitido establecer de forma escalonada y regionalizada la atención a pacientes a la COVID-19 con garantía de disponibilidad de camas de hospitalización, incluidas las unidades de cuidados intensivos, ventiladores suficientes, así como el resto de los requerimientos médicos y tecnológicos. Como parte de la gestión de la ciencia, fue conformado un comité de innovación con varios grupos de expertos. Se aprobó el protocolo de manejo clínico, el cual está concebido con un escenario preventivo y un escenario terapéutico a partir de un escalonamiento de los niveles de complejidad de los servicios. El escenario preventivo ha sido el elemento clave en el modelo de gestión de la epidemia. También se incluyen acciones sobre el personal de salud que atiende casos de contactos sospechosos y los confirmados. Según el modelo cubano, las acciones comienzan en la comunidad y terminan en la misma, mediante vigilancia y otras medidas preventivas, profilácticas y rehabilitación, donde el papel protagónico lo tienen los médicos y las enfermeras de la familia. Hemos incorporado de manera efectiva a los estudiantes de las carreras de ciencias médicas, así como otros profesionales y técnicos de la salud que laboran en la atención primaria. Se dispone también de 22 productos de la industria biotecnológica y farmacéutica cubana, tanto en la prevención como en el tratamiento de los pacientes. Entre ellos, el interferón alfa 2B, que ha demostrado efectividad en el tratamiento de los casos sospechosos y en los confirmados. De igual forma, se implementó el protocolo para el seguimiento de los convalecientes por parte del médico y de la enfermera de la familia, y también la atención especializada a pacientes con secuelas por especialistas de alto nivel. Ambos protocolos tienen aprobados estudios observacionales para evaluar su adherencia y su efectividad. Para minimizar la evolución desfavorable de los pacientes hacia la criticidad, se ha implementado el uso de productos innovadores de la biotecnología cubana, entre ellos el anticuerpo monoclonal anti-CD6, el péptido 6GB258, así como el uso de plasma de pacientes convalecientes, entre otros resultados de la ciencia cubana. De igual forma, se han modificado las técnicas de ventilación para esta enfermedad, lo cual ha permitido que apenas el 7,5% del total de pacientes confirmados llegaran a la categoría de graves y críticos, con una letalidad hasta la fecha de 3,7%. No se reportan niños, niñas y adolescentes fallecidos, Tampoco hemos tenido que lamentar muertes maternas y no hemos tenido ningún caso fallecido del personal sanitario. La vigilancia intensiva, la certificación de 6 laboratorios para el diagnóstico confirmatorio de la COVID-19 mediante PCR, la habilitación de los hospitales para la atención exclusiva a pacientes confirmados, sintomáticos, asintomáticos y sospechosos de alto riesgo, la activación de centros de vigilancia para todos los contactos de casos confirmados y sospechosos, así como la adherencia a los protocolos aprobados, nos ha permitido llegar al cierre del día 9 de junio con 2.211 casos confirmados a la COVID-19, de los cuales 240 permanecen activos. Se acumula un total de 1.888 recuperados, que representa el 85,4%, y 83 han resultado fallecidos. La tasa por 100.000 habitantes en los últimos 15 días es de 2.21 y se acumulan ya 11 días sin reportar fallecidos. En los casos diagnosticados ha predominado el sexo masculino con el 51,3%. Finalmente, colegas, deseo resaltar algunas contribuciones que modestamente nuestro país ha podido brindar en el marco de esta pandemia y otras que serán compartidos de seguro en las próximas etapas. Entre ellas, los resultados de un grupo de investigaciones, intervenciones, ensayos clínicos y aplicaciones que, además de extenderse en el país para la gestión de esta y otras situaciones sanitarias, pueden ser compartidas con otros científicos, expertos y organizaciones a nivel internacional, en especial las relacionadas con el desarrollo y aplicación de los productos innovadores biotecnológicos, candidatos vacunales y antivirales, entre otros. Reitero lo expresado en el día de ayer por el presidente de la República de Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, en la intervención que realizara en la conferencia virtual de alto nivel Economía Postpandemia del ALBA, TCP, y cito: urge intercambiar experiencia y concertar posiciones para enfrentar juntos los efectos de la COVID-19, una pandemia que amenaza con profundizar significativamente la crisis multisectorial que sufren nuestras sociedades. Fin de la cita. Cuba, como en otras ocasiones, reitera su disposición de compartir sus modestas experiencias con el resto de los países del mundo. La ayuda internacional que hemos brindado ha representado una colaboración de 34 brigadas de contingente internacional de médicos especializados en el enfrentamiento de desastres y graves epidemias en RETIP y ha estado conformada por 3.337 profesionales de la salud, los que se encuentran brindando servicios en 27 países. Eso se suma a los más de 28.000 colaboradores que están presentes en 59 países. Reitero, Cuba reitera su disposición de seguir acompañando al mundo en el enfrentamiento a esta grave pandemia. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister Miranda from Cuba. Interesting to learn some of the issues faced by a small island state. Thank you very much. That now completes the presentations from our 6 member states for this morning. As I indicated earlier in the session, we now have a presentation from colleagues at Gavi, that is on the COVAX facility for the COVID-19 vaccine. I understand that CEO Dr. Seth Berkley will join us shortly, but now it is my pleasure to invite Ms. Aurelia Nguyen, the Gavi Managing Director for Vaccines, to give us a presentation on the COVID facility. You have the floor.
Thank you and colleagues for the opportunity to come and for WHO for convening the forum. My name is Aurelia Nguyen. I'm the Managing Director for Vaccines and Sustainability at Gavi. And I'm here to introduce you to the COVID-19 Vaccine Global Access Facility, or COVAX facility for short. It is proposed as a globally coordinated mechanism to accelerate equitable access to appropriate, safe, and efficacious vaccines. It is promoting rapid, coordinated scale-up of manufacturing to optimize total vaccine output. It is promoting access to countries with limited resources who may otherwise be last in line for access to vaccines. It's promoting a coordinated as opposed to a competitive approach to vaccine procurement and fair pricing. And it's promoting global health security by addressing the urgent health needs and the restoring of economic and political stability. At its core, what the facility it's a risk-sharing mechanism. It's about reducing risk for manufacturers concerned about investing in the development and production of COVID-19 vaccines without assured demand. And it's about reducing risk for countries concerned about failing to have secure access to a viable vaccine. All countries are invited to participate in the facility by committing to purchase a certain number of doses once they are available and contributing capital to secure doses and agreements with manufacturers. And by participating, countries receive access to vaccines that will be procured by the facility at an agreed price. There is an innovative financing mechanism that we are calling the COVAX Advanced Market Commitment that is used as the backbone to the facility. And what it does is it has two components: a manufacturer-specific component for volume guarantees, and that provides assurance to manufacturers that we will procure a certain number of vaccines that meet the WHO target product profile, and it has a market-wide demand guarantee to provide incentives to manufacturers to develop vaccines. To ensure that the facility is available for access to all countries, Gavi and others will provide the financial support for low and lower middle income country participation through Overseas Development Assistance Funding, ODA funding. The COVAX facility sits within the ACT vaccines pillar, integrating and complementing with the other efforts of the vaccine pillar, including the efforts by CEPI doing push funding. The facility was announced at the Global Vaccine Summit that took place on the 4th of June and also had its first manufacturer agreement secured with AstraZeneca, securing access to 300 million doses. The way that the facility works is, on the one hand, participating countries make binding commitments and they get in return access to doses. So by joining, countries make commitments in terms of a predefined number of doses and an upfront financial contribution, as well as for those countries who may have bilateral deals in place, they may have a voluntary dose contribution. And in return, what they benefit from is access to doses at a facility negotiated price, access to a variety of vaccine candidates, including those that may be better suited for specific subpopulations, an affordable price by benefiting from economies of scale, and reduce competitive dynamics amongst countries to secure vaccines, as well as for certain countries who may be able to be eligible for financing and programmatic support. The other part of the equation is vis-a-vis the manufacturers. So the facility will provide demand certainty to the manufacturers in exchange for access to timely supply. So the facility will offer a commitment to procure a predefined number of doses. Payment will be conditional on the manufacturers having successful candidates and achieving regulatory approval or WHO pre-qualification. And using the two types of instruments, manufacturer-specific volume guarantees and market-wide demand guarantees, as well as having a goal to achieve minimal returns pricing from the manufacturers. The manufacturers, in return, will commit to scale up at risk and accelerate their production and reserve doses for the facility in a timely manner. From a process perspective, as I mentioned, the facility was launched last Thursday on June the 4th. Today we will be publishing a preliminary technical design document that will give more detail in terms of how the COVAX facility will operate. And we are rapidly moving into the finalization of the design of the COVAX facility and onwards to implementation, ensuring that manufacturers are able to participate and commit doses into the facility and having countries join in participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aurelia, for that presentation. With that, I now have the opportunity to request that member states, if you have any questions for the 6 presenters that we have from our member states today, please raise your hand on the platform as usual practice. Also, of course, we have the opportunity of questions being posed to our colleagues from Gavi in relationship to the COVAX facility, and we have technical colleagues whom you're very familiar with, Mike Ryan, Maria Van Kerkhove, Paul Molinaro in the room, and also today we have Bruce Elwood with a hat, I understand, of the ACT Accelerator Hub lead in the room with us today. So with that, as always, Jude Osai from the Governing Bodies Department is here to support the moderation of the member state questions and comments. So over to you, please, Jude.
Thank you very much. We understand that the mission of Mexico would like to take the floor. So although we don't have the hand up, we would like to invite Mexico to take the floor. Rodrigo, you have the floor now.
Thank you. Thank you, Jude. Let me first thank the countries that participated today for sharing their lessons learned. Also, Aurelia for her explanation of Gavi's actions and efforts, and also the Secretariat for their continuing efforts to keep us informed of their action. We have 3 questions, 1 for the Secretariat and 2 for Gavi. Our first question is for the Secretariat. As the DG just mentioned, WHO has shipped more than 5 million items of personal protective equipment, diagnostics, and other essential medical provisions to more than 100 countries. We celebrate these actions and commend your efforts and those of other UN agencies that are helping with such deliveries. We would like to better understand how these efforts have impacted the Americas region. So our question is, could the Secretary please share with us which countries from the Americas have received this type of support through the solidarity flights or other similar channels? Our second question is directed to Gavi. Last week, Gavi and CEPI, like Aurelia mentioned, announced signing of a memorandum of understanding with AstraZeneca that will guarantee 300 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine developed by the University of Oxford. As explained, these efforts are linked through the ACT Accelerator and the COVAX facility. Could Gavi please clarify if the 300 million doses are supposed to be distributed globally according to these to the future allocation mechanisms that we are negotiating, or will negotiate, or if such doses will be only directed for Gavi-supported countries? And our last question, the COVAX AMC has an initial goal of $2 billion US. In Gavi's press release from last June 4th, in which the COVAX AMC was announced, it is mentioned that this quantity is enough to immunize health workers and high-risk individuals of Gavi-supported countries, which I understand is around 70 countries. What would be your financial estimation to achieve immunization of health workers and high-risk individuals in all countries affected? In other words, how much do you think it will be needed to support a larger set of countries? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mexico. We have Peru and then Monaco. Carlos, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Jude. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me congratulate and appreciate very much the presentations by the distinguished representative of New Zealand, Bangladesh, Oman, Norway, Botswana, and Cuba for sharing their experiences in the response to COVID-19. We really appreciate their efforts and their disposition to share with us their experiences. I also want to congratulate Rodrigo from Mexico for putting forward very interesting questions that we are very much interested in hearing the responses. And my question is somehow related to those posed already by Mexico, in particular for Gabby, Aurelia, and the Secretariat, if they are in a position to answer as well. Last week, we member states, we received a very interesting briefing by WHO on the development of a framework to ensure equitable and fair allocation of COVID-19 products originated through the ACT Accelerator partnerships. So my question would be, how is this Gavi initiative, the COVAX facility, relate to this framework to ensure equitable access that WHO is currently designing? What is the interaction between these two mechanisms in order to avoid a duplication of work and achieve what we are all wanting to, which is a fair and equitable distribution of all both diagnosis, treatments, and vaccines against COVID-19? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Carlos. May I now invite Ambassador Lanteri from Monaco. You have the floor, please.
Oui, bonjour, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
We can, Ambassador. Please proceed.
Je vais parler en français et je souhaite remercier l'ensemble des intervenants pour les présentations qui ont été faites, ainsi que pour les efforts réalisés dans leur pays afin de lutter contre la Covid. Mes questions vont suivre celles qui ont été posées par le Mexique et le Pérou, et ils ont déjà posé un certain nombre de mes questions, donc je vais simplement me focaliser sur la possibilité donc pour tous les pays de participer à l'initiative COVAX à partir du moment où on s'engage à acheter une certaine quantité de vaccins et à participer au capital. Est-ce qu'on pourrait avoir un peu plus d'informations à ce sujet? Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Ambassador. I don't see any further requests for the floor, Chair.
Thank you very much, Jude, and thank you, Mexico, Peru, and Monaco for those questions. I think we'll start with the questions from Mexico in relationship to the efforts of WHO to ensure that PPE and other products are being disseminated to countries in the Americas regions. We have Paul Molinaro, Chief Logistics, well known to most of you, I hope, on the member state briefing today. Paul, I hand the floor to you for that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In terms of the past activities, I have to say that the quantities delivered prior to the shutdown of all air networks was quite negligible due to the difficulties in
what is it part of the meeting? Very important.
Due to the difficulties in transporting and shipping. Now that we have set up the modalities for dealing with that and have put substantive orders in, what we do have to date in terms of PPE is about 57.9 million pieces that are now in our hands. It's worth about $30 million. And what we have done is those first quantities are being shipped out, with the first plane arriving in Panama today. We are doing it through a phased approach. So these current transportations for Ecuador and Peru is direct because of the volumes in concern. That should be on its way within the week or into early next week. We're also transporting right now Antigua, Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, St. Kitts and Nevis, Paraguay and El Salvador in these first transportations. Venezuela, Suriname, Panama, Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Bolivia. Transportation is also submitted, and items are packed and being handed over to WFP. And the balance is in hand and is in the process of being labeled and packed. So all in all, at least in this phase, with what we have in prep in transportation on its way, it's equivalent to about 6,700 cubic meters of volume. It's quite substantive. And the continued pipeline, which is still not yet packed and picked, is roughly around the same. So it's about 12,000 meter cube of PPE that's on its way. In addition, as far as in the biomedical, which we have now set up through the consortium and have acquired various quantities, we have also put into the transport network oxygen concentrators for Haiti and Jamaica, with the large volume for Haiti. In diagnostics, we have been moving some tests acquired and transported by PAHO. I don't have those totals and numbers at hand, but the larger volume quantities of tests that we had pre-procured for all countries, many of them are now in the process of being prepped for transportation at the manufacturers. With those tests, it's a different transport system due to the temperature control requirements. We are trying, where possible, to organize deliveries that can go directly straight to countries with as minimum numbers of points of transit as possible due to the nature of the product and the fact that we need dry ice availability at each hub that those aircraft. So that does take a bit more time to set up. Within our system, we are slowly getting ourselves together in terms of the information management element, and WFP will shortly begin issuing information sheets that give an idea of quantities that have been firm pipeline, quantities that our transportation is booked, quantities that we actually have a transport schedule for, and then finally quantities delivered per country on a per country basis.
Can I just add, because just in the specific case of Admiral Powell, we do recognise the wonderful work that PAHO have done in managing their own procurement mechanism. There is an existing emergency procurement mechanism. We work very closely. In fact, we had Analia Porras here for 3 weeks, working directly with us from PAHO to ensure that we were able to streamline both the PAHO AMRO mechanisms that exist with countries and the global mechanism to ensure that they were completely aligned. And again, just to reiterate, this is bringing together multiple commodities from multiple countries in order to deliver to multiple countries against different orders and needs. Not all countries need the same amount of everything. So it's been quite the task to pull all that together, with specific reference to diagnostics on the PAHO side. I believe, Paul, I can't remember the date, but very early on in this response, we provided, I think, $5 million of contingency funds before any of this existed, directly to PAHO, in order to secure precious diagnostics in the region, so that one country in the region, manufacturer in one part of the region, could be accessed to provide diagnostics to many countries across the region. So this will scale up. The last thing I will say is, and this may be in relation to our working with our colleagues in Gavi and UNICEF and others, there is right now some of the supply chains are beginning to open, but as we've seen with the data in recent days, many countries have increasing cases. The demands are actually growing, not decreasing. And we also face another potential supply chain problem that we need to think through now, not in 6 months' time. We may be very successful, and we hope we are, in developing a vaccine, but there are a lot of commodities like syringes, sharps boxes and all of the other commodities and needs that go with large-scale vaccination campaigns. So we need to lock in the idea of managing and protecting the supply chain, not only for vaccines ultimately, but also for all of the other supplies that will make those campaigns successful. Ultimately, we hope when we have a safe and effective vaccine. Back to you, Tim.
Thank you very much, Mike. I understand that Dr. Seth Berkley, CEO for Gavi, has been able to join us now, so very warm welcome to you, Seth. Thank you for making the opportunity to be with us today. There were several questions for Gavi from Mexico, from Peru, and from Monaco. I think I'll propose to hand the floor first to Aurelia, if you would wish to take those, and or then manage with Seth moving forward. Over.
Thank you. So to the question from Mexico, thank you very much on AstraZeneca. The 300 million doses that have been secured could be deployed globally. The agreement was done backed by ODA funding, and what we would like to see as part of the facility is to have a large pool of funding from many different sources, and so we can deploy those doses wherever they need to go. Vis-a-vis the question of 2 billion, indeed, right now it is an initial investment that we are requesting funding against, as you highlighted, for healthcare workers and high-risk groups in Gavi-supported countries. Overall, we estimate that the funding requirement will be in the tens of billions of dollars, but what is absolutely critical to focus on right now is that we need an upfront investment, which is perhaps of the order of about $15 billion. And that upfront investment is critical to put in place the manufacturing supply, to put in place the agreements with manufacturers for advanced purchase commitments for the future supply of vaccines. All of the costing numbers will be reviewed and presented in more detail at the upcoming event organized by the European Commission on the 27th of June. And then to the question from Peru, thank you very much on how the allocation framework comes into play with the participation of countries. What we envisage at this stage is that for countries that will be financing themselves, fully self-financing, they will put forward a financial contribution and have a proportion linked to their populations of doses ring-fenced for that. And then beyond that, for all countries fully self-financing and funded externally through ODA, the WHO allocation framework that is being put in place would be the mechanism that would help allocate the doses in the most effective way. And then to the question from Monaco, merci beaucoup pour votre question. Je me permets de vous répondre en anglais. From the participants' perspective, what we are asking for is an upfront commitment, and this links back to my earlier comment on needing to put in place agreements in a very, very rapid manner for securing supply with the manufacturers. But those upfront commitments will be drawn down upon as and when doses are available to countries and be used in the form of payment against future purchases. So I'll stop there and hand it over to Seth.
So thank you, Aurelia, and I apologize to all of the member states. I was actually at a parliamentary hearing which was scheduled before this, and so I couldn't be absent from that. I am sure I didn't hear the questions or discussion, so I'm sure Aurelia covered it very well, but I would just like to emphasize a couple of points. This is a global problem and we need a global solution. And, you know, I'm quite worried now that fear has taken over and many countries are looking at national solutions. And the problem with that is there is no scenario in which the aggregate supply of safe and effective vaccines over the next 18 months are going to exceed the potential demand. And so if we don't use those vaccines as smart as possible, where we're going to end up is not optimizing the response and not optimizing, the reduction in the pandemic. And so there's a lot that can be done to do that, but to do that, we need to make sure we get the best vaccines moved forward and not have it, scattered so that we don't have focus on those, that we scale up manufacturing it adequately to have doses available. And of course, if vaccines fail, we want to be able to quickly pivot and use that manufacturing capability to take vaccines that are more promising forward and scale up. And of course, we have to make sure that there are no regions of the world where there are large reservoirs of virus circulating, and we have to deal with that public health aspect. And of course, it's very hard to know today where we will be at the time we have an efficacious vaccine, which is why this global point of view is absolutely critical. So we look forward to work hand in glove with WHO, with CEPI, with all of you to try to turn this into a reality. But as Aurelia has obviously emphasized, this needs to happen quickly, because otherwise we're going to end up with a small number of countries locking up all the doses that potentially could exist in this next 12 months or so, and then we will not have vaccines to do our best to try to control this disease. So more details will come. We will be publishing the details around the facility, the advanced market commitment, etc., but I just thought it was worth re-emphasizing those absolutely critical points. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much again, Seth, and thank you for joining us here today, given your other commitment. It's very much appreciated. Jude, I understand there's another member state wishing to take the floor.
Yes, please. May I kindly invite Egypt to take the floor?
Thank you, Jude. Thank you so much. سوف أطرح سؤالي باللغة العربية وآسف لأنني
Yes, sir.
سؤالي في الحصر بين جافي وجامعة إكسفورد، وهو سؤال بسيط: هل نتحدث عن لقاح جاري إجراء التجارب عليه بالفعل أم لقاح مرشح لإجراء التجارب عليه؟ حالتين: ما هو الوقت المحدد لإنتاج لقاح فعال وآمن ضد الفيروس وتوفيره بالكميات المطلوبة للدول المتحدة في الحصول عليه؟ شكرا.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Egypt, for those questions. I'd like to now hand the floor back to Seth to provide an initial response. Seth, you have the floor.
So thank you, my colleague from Egypt. So our relationship, we are not in a direct relationship with the University of Oxford. This agreement we did was with AstraZeneca, which is the company that has had the vaccine licensed to them. The relationship with both Oxford and AstraZeneca also exists with CEPI, who has provided push funding to try to go ahead and accelerate that trial. The vaccine is now in clinical trials and is moving towards, it's in phase 1, phase 2 clinical trials, and will be moving towards phase 3 clinical trials later in this year. Obviously, we have no idea whether that is going to work or not, and so as I'm sure Aurelia explained, our goal is to try to have a range of vaccines. The idea is sorry, they muted me. the goal is to have a portfolio of vaccines. The likelihood of any single vaccine succeeding is less than 10% in the preclinical and maybe goes up to 20% in clinical. And that's why we want to have, a portfolio of 10 to 15 vaccines that are moving forward so that we increase the likelihood of success. And of course, we can't predict the timeline for that success, but there is a possibility to have efficacy results by the end of this year. We don't know whether they'll be positive or not, and therefore our plan is in the first 18 months is to try to scale up to have 1 to 2 billion doses so if we have an efficacious vaccines, in other words, more than one, we would have the ability to make those vaccines available. Over.
Thank you very much for those comments. Jude, any more member states wishing to take the floor? With that then, I thank you all very much for your comments today. I'd like now to give the floor back to the DG for any final remarks. DG?
Yeah, thank you so much. As always, we had excellent presentations from ministers of 6 countries, and I hope we have drawn lessons from the experiences of all these countries. And I would like to use this opportunity to thank again ministers, New Zealand, Bangladesh, Oman, Norway, Botswana, and Cuba. So we will make use of the experience you've shared, and this will help us in the fight against the pandemic. There are many unknowns, and it's the experience sharing like this which will help us to understand the virus more and to respond in a better way. So thank you so much for your excellent presentations, and thank you also to all member states who have joined today. And next week, Thursday, we will have additional member states who can present and share their experience. Till then, all the best, and thank you so much again.
Thank you very much, DG, for those.
By the way, thank you, Gabi. I appreciated Seth for joining us. So I will repeat again, thank you so much. And I also appreciated on your behalf all member states who have contributed to the successful replenishment, and to the United Kingdom for hosting this very successful replenishment. And thank you, Seth, for joining. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, DG. And in closing, I'd just like to alert all member states that the 6 member state presentations and the presentation from Gavi are now available on the GBS portal, where the presentations, you can find them each week. So please go to those presentations for further reference. With that, I thank you very much, and as DG said, we will be honoured to meet here again next week for another session on the member state information on MS-COVID. Thank you, and have a lovely afternoon, evening, and night.
Thank you.